Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 573. This was a interesting and highly tactical game with lots of blunders on both sides. So anyway, play along. I guess you can make a game of this by seeing how many of these blunders you can spot in advance. Anyway, I play e4. My opponent played knight f6, and I go on with e5. This is the Alekhine's defense. e5 is the main move here, although you can just kind of quietly support the pawn with knight c3 if you want to avoid theory, still leaving some small edge, but really e5 is the way to play it. This chases the knight, usually goes to d5, and then d4 is the main follow-up, although you can play c4 immediately and go for chasing the knight around. I go for that on the next move, after d6, the main reply. Black's idea is to counterattack the center, and so this is putting a little pressure on the center right away. And I like to play c4 immediately to kick the knight out of the center, although I think the modern line is knight to f3 right here. Both should be okay. c4 kicking the knight, knight b6, and then the four pawns attack is f4, probably the most aggressive way to play it, but it's easy to get overextended in that line. So, yeah, it looks like, well, it's still the most popular line in this database, and it's still reasonably valued by the chess engine. But it's a little bit safer to play with e takes d6, and now black can retake with either pawn, but this is a little more popular. And you get this kind of position where white has a little more space, and this knight is a little bit out of play. So there's a slight edge to white here, and so you're playing more for a comfortable edge. Now the main move here is knight to c3. I played knight f3. It's not particularly bad, so it's an okay move, but it makes more sense actually in this position to develop the queen side first rather than develop the king side, because you have some weaknesses over here you need to cover, and we'll see an example of this in one move. So the first blunder is coming up. Knight to c3, my opponent played knight c6. Yeah, and my next move is a blunder, this b3 move I played. So if you want to play a little tactical quiz, if you don't remember what happened in the game, what's wrong with that b3 move? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. I played b3, and then his knight just hops into b4. So this is one of those things, of course, with the bishop on f5, cutting across this diagonal where I don't have a lot of control at the moment. You always have to be on the lookout for these shots with the knight move, targeting the c2 square, or sometimes the d3 square. In this case, I have the d3 square under control, but c2 is weak. And what's strange is that I don't have any move to, there's no piece that can control that square, so this knight c2 move is happening regardless of what I play. So already I'm losing. If we back up a move, right here I actually had to deal with the threat. This move, knight to b4, is coming with the threat. I could just develop this bishop so that I could meet knight b4 with rook to c1. That's one way to deal with it. Or I could play bishop d3. So a couple of plausible ways to deal with this position. But anyway, the game went b3, knight b4, and now I'm just kind of scrambling for some some way to get out of this situation. I throw in a check. He blocks with bishop e7, and then I go knight h4. So this is my idea, was to put some pressure on the bishop, and maybe if he goes in for this knight c2 check and grabs the rook, then I can grab the bishop and trap the knight. But it turns out knight c2 check is good anyway, but for a different reason. So knight c2 check, I move the king, and now if he does grab the rook, you can see knight takes a1. This is good for white. He grabs the rook, I grab the bishop, and the knight is trapped. But he doesn't have to take the rook. He can grab this pawn here, hitting my queen, and that's kind of annoying. The queen needs to stay on this file because it's got to keep that bishop pinned. This knight h4 move is only possible because the bishop was pinned here. And so this lands me into some trouble. Let's see, I need to play a move like queen e3, and then bishop to c2 check, and looks like black is getting out of trouble with untangling his pieces. He's gained a pawn, and he's destroyed my castling privileges. So anyway, that would be winning for black. Black played queen b7, kind of letting me back in the game. I take the bishop, he takes. And then I play this funny move, king to d1. But it's actually, if you look at it, this is one of the engine choices here. It's a reasonable move in this position because I'm guarding the c2 square. And so now the knight can't hop in there. So I've lost my castling privileges, but I'm not down material, and the game would continue. And normally, I think a normal move here would be for black to castle. Somehow maybe black was feeling sorry for me and decided to let me back in the game. Because black played the really strange move, king d7. And now white's a little better because both sides have lost their castling privileges. But let's see, I have the bishop pair and a little more space. So that's my slight edge here. Let's see, it's black's move, though. He continues. Let's see. Oh, no, it's my move. I continue developing. Bishop e3. Rook h e8. So looking at my queen through the bishops. I went with a3, kicking his knight back. Knight drops back to c6, and I went g3. G3 is okay. At first it doesn't like it, but if you give it some time to think, it'll change its mind. Maybe not. Bishop f6 is what was played. Let's put this on the board. Yeah, starting to change. Yeah, so it's not, bishop g3 is not such a horrible move as the chess engine first thinks. But in this position, even stronger would be g4. Because I get a tempo against the queen. You know, my king is not castling either side. I'm probably going to walk over here at some point if I can chase the queen off that diagonal and try and find a home on the queen side. So there's no point in a move like g3 when I can play g4 with a tempo in this case. And normally, I mean, you're sort of conditioned against moves like that because they mess up your king side pawn structure. But my king is not going to end up over there anyway. So g4 is just a good move here. But, okay, so g3 still keeps some edge. Bishop f6 and d5. So d5 is the blunder. And this is another kind of tactical quiz opportunity. Can you see what's wrong with d5 and why it's such a terrible move? I mean, first of all, it's not, I'll give you one clue. It's not the fact that this knight is loose here. That's not a particular problem because I'm attacking his knight and I can take it with check. So the fact that the bishop is attacking my rook there, it's not a great problem. I mean, it's still probably a good continuation. But there's another problem with this d5 move. And I should probably just play a move like queen to d2, unpinning my bishop. That would be very sensible. Okay, pause the video if you want time to figure out that tactic. It's a little more complicated, so you might want to look at it for a little bit, see if you can find it. I'm going to give the answer away now. So I played d5. And my opponent played knight to d4, and that is just a killer move. That's the tactic. So first of all, I can't just trade because bishop is pinned. The real threat, though, with knight d4 is that it's chasing my queen off of this diagonal here and preventing me from guarding the f3 square. And then his queen comes into f3 with a fork between my king and my rook. So where can I go? I guess I could try coming here to... no, there's no square I can go on this diagonal. He just takes my queen wherever it goes. So the engine says the best move is queen a2, running as far away as possible. And there's still queen f3 check. And then there's this kind of tricky response, king d2. And this has the idea that if queen takes rook, I have bishop to h3 check. So that rook is still defended in the corner. But let's see, rook takes e3, taking the bishop. He just destroys my king side now, or my king's safety. I take back, and knight to f5, and black has a winning attack. So pretty deep tactic there, but interesting. So knight d4 is just winning here. I went queen d3, and queen f3 is the move right here. It still wins, but he played queen takes d3, and so now I'm back in the game once again. He has that advantage that he had after my first mistake, and before he played king d7, we got back to that kind of situation where black is better here, but I can play on. So let's see, it's black's turn to move here. He throws a knight takes b3, picks up a pawn, starts to cash in on his material, and he's hitting my knight here, which is loose. So I played rook to b1, counterattacking his knight. That was, the engine likes that one. Wasn't really sure. Oh yeah, if I move my king to defend the knight, then he takes the rook. So rook to b1 is pretty much the only move. And we get this exchange. He takes here, I take here, and black maintains an edge here. He's up a pawn, but I have the bishop pair, and both kings are in the middle of the board. Anyway, he retreats his bishop to a5, which I thought was kind of weird. And now I maybe have a little bit of an edge. I kick off with h4, just gaining some space over here, and maybe looking to advance these pawns, secure some squares for my bishops. Yeah, this was also a tactical idea. I want to grab this pawn over here, and if he tries to trap my bishop, then I can play h5. So anyway, he stops that with g6. I go h5 anyway, try to create some weaknesses over here. I go c5. So yeah, starting with that bishop a5 move, the advantage is swung back in my favor. Now I have an advantage, but this won't last. Let's see, I take en passant here. Okay, that's okay, but I could have just left the pawn structure as is and played king c2. Tried to get my king into the game a little bit and get this rook into the game. Okay, so d takes c6. I thought I was weakening the structure around his king, but he's okay with b takes c6. King takes c6 is not that great, so it keeps some edge. I take over here on g6, takes back, and I play rook to h7. And he goes rook to e7, defending his pawn. And now I see a way to... so at this point, I've maintained my advantage, and I lose it on the next move, trying to go for a tactic. So the tactic I'm looking at is bishop takes g6, taking advantage of this pin, and just picking up a pawn, so I think. And that fails to a clever response. So here's another little tactical quiz if you want to see, try and figure out what's wrong with the bishop takes g6. Okay, I played it, and my opponent spotted this move, so good on him. It's basically two pieces for a rook. He can grab this bishop, and now my rook is hanging and my bishop is hanging. I have to respond to this. I take his rook, and then he grabs my other bishop. So we got I got a pawn, but he got two pieces. So let's count the pawns now. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's 4 pawns against 4 pawns, and he has 2 pieces for a rook. But my pawns are, I think, a little more scattered, and his bishop, I guess, is going to looks out of play over here, but I guess it's going to get into the game eventually. So black is better, but the game will continue. And as I try to stir up some trouble with my rooks, sometimes the 2 rooks can be quite quite powerful in the endgame, playing against the pieces. These pieces can be a little bit clumsy. It just is not working out in this particular case. He grabs another pawn. Yeah, I think that's part of my problem, is that all my pawns are kind of loose over here on the queen side. I go with rook takes b7. He goes knight takes a3. And let's see, I bring my rook back to g7. I was going to round up some pawns, and he plays the clever move rook e8. And my final mistake here was I said, oh, he's not mating me here, is he? I noticed he had a check supported by the bishop. And of course I was expecting to escape to this square, not noticing his knight is covering that square. So I played rook takes g6, and he played rook to e1 mate. So a very nice mate, right? He's using all of his pieces, the bishop protecting the rook, and the knight guarding the single escape square. So a pretty finish to a crazy game. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon.